I have been reading the book of Judges. I don't know if you knew that or not. Did you know that? You did. You did know that. How? Praise the Lord. Oh, man, have you all been reading it as well? So I've been really amazed at the book of Judges in the Old Testament. And what I've been amazed at is the story of Samson, the strong man. It's, and I don't like using the word story, but I'm going to use it. It's the story, the story is full of the right thing being the wrong thing to do, and the wrong thing being the right thing to do. Now, I'm going to leave that with you, because I want you to go away. I want you to read the story of Samson and go, I get it. I understand. But it really got me thinking, this story of Samson, this account of what he did, not reigning, because he was a judge rather than a king, but governing Israel for 20 years. Is there ever a time in doing the right thing is the wrong thing to do? And likewise, is there a time when doing the wrong thing is the right thing to do? Okay, so I don't think there's a straight answer to that particular question or those questions, and I think it's a struggle. But to both of those questions, my extra question is, what is your motivation? In the story of Samson, what Samson's parents didn't realize when he went to marry the Philistine woman, that it was part of God's plan. I don't get that. I'll be honest, I do not get that. And it's all about motivation. Is doing the wrong thing the right thing to do, and doing the right thing the wrong thing to do? We're doing a series at the moment. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. But we're doing a series on Jesus' parables. And I don't know about you, when you read the Bible, when you hear sermons, etc., I don't know, in your mind, did it take you to places? Are you kind of one of those visual people that you imagine yourself as one of the disciples, one of the crowds, or hopefully nobody ever kind of thinks themselves one of the fish at all that is caught in the net? I hope we don't ever see it from that angle at all. That was a joke. Wow. Thank you. Steve's wondering whether he'll still be lying on the beach somewhere. Okay, we'll cut the jokes. We'll cut the jokes out. Oh, thank you. One person. Dear. But anyway, I'm going to carry on and continue. Is it like me? Do you ever kind of, you're there and you're wondering, you're listening to these parables, and when Jesus starts with those words, two men, or in a certain town, or once there was those beginnings of those parables, that you think, oh no, here we go. What is Jesus about to teach? Because those who knew, for those who didn't, they were just stories. But for those who knew, there was deep teaching in Jesus' parables. And as we looked at last time, that actually some of the parables were literally just a line long, and yet the power in that one single sentence has had people for the past 2,000 years talking and preaching about it. So I want to look at the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector. This is in Luke chapter 18, verses 9 to 14. And what's really important is that it's not 10 to 14, it's verse 9 as well. So this is how it is. To some who were confident of their own righteousness and looked down on everybody else, Jesus told this parable. That is the beginning of it. That's not the parable, but that sets the scene for us. So here we go. These are the words. Two men went up to the temple to pray. Jesus is giving us a parable, isn't he? What's the point going to be? And you think, do you know what? So far, so good. This is okay. I'm liking this. They're two people and they go into the temple. What could surely go wrong that Jesus is going to bring out a major teaching point from this? One was a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. Bosh. There it is. Straight down the line. Imagine the listeners at that point. Oh, no, the Pharisees that were there going, oh, it's us again. It's our turn again. And the tax collectors, if they were tax collectors, they're thinking, oh, is he going to paint us in a bad light or not? Or what is he going to be saying? And that crowd go, ooh, tax collectors. Ooh, Pharisees. This is going to be good. That sense of, I'm leaning in now. He's got me. I'm hook, line, and sinker. That's if you were the fish. Look at no. Okay. No, please. No, it's too late. It's too late for that. Okay. So, one was a Pharisee, another a tax collector. The Pharisee stood by himself and prayed, God, I thank you, I'm not like other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give 1/10 of all I get. But the tax collector stood at a distance. He wouldn't even look up to heaven. He beat his breast and said, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. I tell you that this man, rather than the other, went home justified before God. I love what Jesus does. There's a little bit more to come. I love what Jesus does. We okay up there? I don't know. Because just to clarify, you're thinking, oh, he just says the man was justified. Well, if I was a Pharisee, I thought, oh, obviously he's talking about the Pharisee. But actually, just to clarify, Jesus gives his conclusion twice, just so we fully get it. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. So it's a parable. It's an event that didn't happen, but this is a story Jesus told to bring a teaching point. Now, I think when Jesus spoke parables, I said last time, that actually Jesus spoke about things that were relevant to the people of the day and easy for them to understand. So that sense of a Pharisee, that sense of a tax collector, the crowd knew what sort of people that they were. Now, Jesus is teaching on prayer. The parable just before, so it's two parables together in this particular part of Luke chapter 18. So 1 to 8 is also the parable of the unjust judge as well. I'm not going to really touch on that at all, but he's teaching on prayer. But I think there is just so much more to this short little parable than just prayer. So I just want to go through it briefly and pull out a few points to it. So firstly, just to kind of, for our own sake, just to clarify what a Pharisee was. So a Pharisee was a Jewish religious party, or the Pharisees, a Jewish religious party whose members required a very strict rules and rituals of the law to follow. That was part of a tradition of their predecessors. They were hostile to the teachings of Jesus, which they regarded as compromising their interpretation of the law. And that's what's really important in that little sentence there, is that actually it was their interpretation of the law. We'll pick up on that in a little while. The tax collectors, okay, whether we like this fact or not, that governments have the right to collect taxes. But those who collected them in Jesus' day often had been unpopular, not least because they seemed to have demanded more than they were entitled to. I don't know if you pay taxes, if you're self-employed and you have to fill out your tax returns or not, and always that feeling of, I'm sure I'm having to pay more than I really should. And you kind of think, I'm sure they're working this, so I'm the one that's always caught out. But the government are entitled to pay taxes. No, they're not. The government entitled to collect tax. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be fantastic? Lord, I pray that my mishap was actually true. Amen. Anyway, but Jesus welcomed such people, as he did other sinners. And this is great. Many repented as a result of his affirming attitude. And what I love about Jesus is that he to the point, that they almost, Zacchaeus up the tree, I'm coming to your house for tea. And Jesus didn't condemn him. Zacchaeus condemned himself. He realized, he saw in Jesus, do you know what? His standard is totally off my standard. His standards are right, my standards are wrong. Now, I'm going to take a little sidetrack down. I am going to talk about taxes. Okay, I've just actually done my tax returns. Okay, nice and early. Get them in, people. Come on. The stress is unbelievable. It just goes. It took me about an hour and a half. That's all it took. So we don't have to wait till the 29th of January to kind of go, to do them. Anyway, so Jesus supports paying taxes. I've got 2 Bible readings I just want to quickly look at. As I say, it's a slight side alley, but I think it's really important, and there's a great point at the end as well. So the first one is Matthew chapter 17, verses 24 to 27. It says this: After Jesus and his disciples arrived in Capernaum, the collectors of the 2 drachma temple tax came to Peter and asked, "Does your teacher pay the temple tax?" "Yes, he does," he replied. When Peter came into the house, Jesus was the first to speak. "What do you think, Simon?" he asked. "From whom does the king of the earth collect duty and taxes? From their own children or from others?" "From others," Peter answered. "Then the children are exempt," Jesus said to him. "But so that we may not cause offense, go to the lake and throw out a line. Take the first fish you catch, open its mouth, and there you will find a 4 drachma coin. Take it and give it to them for my tax and for yours." That's not a bad day's work, is it really? To pay your taxes. 2 drachma, I'm led to believe, is about 2 days' worth of wages. So a little bit of fishing, 2 days of earnings to pay your taxes. That's pretty good. Now we're going to go and find out that all the taxpayers now are going to go out and buy fishing rods and off to Lydney Lake to see if there are any coins at all to pay their taxes. I'm not suggesting you do that. Okay? That's not the point of it all. But Matthew chapter 22. So Jesus there saying, do you know what? I'm the prince of the world, of the earth. God is my father. I am therefore a child of the king. I don't have to pay taxes, but I still will. I think that's quite a point that he draws out there. Matthew 22, 15 to 22. Then the Pharisees went out and laid plans to trap him in his words. They sent their disciples to him along with Herodians. "Teacher," they said, "we know that you are a man of integrity and that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You aren't swayed by others because you pay no attention to who they are. Tell us then, what in your opinion? Tell them, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not?" But Jesus, knowing their evil intent, we learned about Pharisees, didn't we? They were hostile to Jesus' teaching. But here they are saying, "Oh, you're a man of integrity. You teach the ways of God. You are in accordance with the truth." Jesus saw through all of that. He knew their evil intent. He said, "You hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? Show me the coin used for paying the tax." They brought him a denarius and he asked them, "Whose image is on this and whose inscription?" "Caesar's," they said. Then he said to them, "So give back to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God what is God's." And when they heard this, they were amazed, and they left him and went away. In that second reading, it shows us the problem. This is actually all linked, believe it or not, to this parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector. But it sees the problem. The Pharisees went out and laid plans to trap him in his words. This Pharisee that went to the temple, he wasn't going, well, he was going for himself, and that's the point, that he was going in for himself and not for God. Because he wanted to stand there by himself. He wanted to pray out loud and tell the other people. He didn't want to tell God. He wanted to tell all the other people of what he does as a Pharisee. He wanted to draw attention to himself. And that's where he gets it just, I think, so wrong. But verse 14 of our parable, I tell you that this man, this tax collector, rather than the other, went home justified. And went home justified before God. 3 so important words: to be justified before God. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Justified, to be accepted by God. These two people who prayed in the temple, great place to pray in the temple. But Jesus saying that the one man was not justified, was not accepted by God. And yet, being a Pharisee, he wasn't accepted. But yet, that tax collector, for his prayer, he is accepted. Why? What was those two people's motivations? Going back to that original question. What is your motivation? What were their motivations? The Pharisees' motivation was for self-glory. The tax collector's motivation was out of needing forgiveness, needing God. Why do you do what you do? A question to ask ourselves. What is my motivation? Is it like the Pharisee? Do I do things for my own glory? Or actually do I do things, and therefore the opposite of that, for God's glory? Is that what I'm about? That tax collector, knowing he needed God. I read this in a commentary, and it struck me really well, and I thought there's something definitely in this. It said this: God is always ready to receive the unrighteous when they call to him, but he closes his ears to those whose pride in their religious practices and good works make them feel self-sufficient. Where do you put yourself? Which camp are you in? Are you in with the Pharisees? Or are you in with the tax collectors? I know I've made it a bit simple. There's a massive grey area, but to be very black and white about it, where do you put yourself? I want to turn the screw just ever so slightly on this. Do you need God, or do you think God needs you? That, for me, I'm going to be honest, I think probably 95% of the time I think God needs me to be doing this, doing that, doing the other, to be this, to be that. But it's not the case, is it? God doesn't need me. It's not that he doesn't love me or doesn't care for me or is passionate about me and has given me gifts and skills to use for his kingdom. That's not what that's saying. But are you somebody who thinks that God needs you, or are you somebody who says, I need God? Do you really need God for your life to survive? And that's where that tax collector was. That tax collector stood at a distance. He wouldn't even look up to heaven, but beat his breast and said, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. He's throwing himself on God's mercy. And I guess he's saying to God, deal with me justly. You know what I've done. If I'm, not even worthy enough, if I find favor, that you will save me. But if I don't, I'm at your mercy. That's what he's saying to God. He's saying, actually, I've come to the point where I can only survive with you. Jesus' parables, aren't they fun? What they draw out, I think, is just, it's there, it's a story, but yet it's so deep. Now, Jesus wasn't just a nice storyteller. He didn't just tell stories just to entertain the crowd. He isn't a kind of a stand-up comedian or a motivational speaker or a moral leader. I mean, he is all of those things, but he's interested in change. And here we see what he draws out. Yes, he's talking about prayer. But I think there's so much more for me that I've drawn out of this. That actually, what type of person am I? God is interested in changing me. He's not wishing to, you're a tax collector, that's it, you're on the rubbish heap. That actually, if those who are unrighteous call upon him, God will save them. The tax collector needed to change, but also the Pharisee did as well. The question to finish with, do you want Jesus to change you? Amen.